All right, we'll let folks kind of come in a little bit at a time. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Reader Meet Writer here from SEBA. My name is Wiley Cash. I am a novelist living on the coast of North Carolina, where it is very wet and also very humid. We've been having some rain here all day, so I hope it's dry and warm and maybe not quite so humid wherever you are. And for those of you who haven't seen me, I've seen a lot of you online at these events over the past several months. You may have noticed the big national news and the way our country has changed since we were all last together. And it is true, I did shave my beard, and which revealed this lovely mustache that is both horrifying and captivating to my wife. So I'm going to run with it for now. But I wanted to welcome you all back. As I said, my name is Wiley Cash. I'm the 2019 recipient of the Pat Conroy Legacy Prize from SEBA, and I'm also the writer in residence at the University of North Carolina, Asheville. So SEBA stands for the Southern Independent Booksellers Alliance, and SEBA is an organization that represents almost 700 independently owned bookstores across the Southeast. And perhaps you are here tonight because you found out about this event. I know all of you already know who Julia is. You're all familiar with her work, but perhaps you found out about tonight's event because one of those independently owned bookstores in your local community brought you here. So if that is the case, please tonight, if you are considering purchasing Julia's new book, please consider purchasing it from the independent bookstore that brought you to tonight's event. Tonight's guest, as you all know, is Julia Fowler. And before I toss the event to her, I want to encourage you all, if you have questions for Julia tonight about anything she said, any work she's done, her career prior to the work she's done with the screenwriting and with the books and things like that, her career on Broadway perhaps, and her acting, go down to the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen and type your question in there. And at the end of the show, I will feed your questions to Julia, and we'll make sure to get through as many as we can. When you leave your question, make sure to leave your name and also the name of your favorite independently owned bookstore. So without further ado, I would like to introduce tonight's guest. Julia Fowler is an actor, screenwriter, author, and creator of the Southern Women channel, a YouTube sensation with over 25 million views. She writes, directs, and acts in all of the videos for her channel. And you may want to check out one of the most recent ones. It's about the coronavirus, things that Southern women say about their coronavirus. And they're pretty dead on, actually. Her videos have gone viral, been written about in newspapers throughout the South, and were featured on the Today Show. Her book, Talk Southern to Me, was released by Gibbs Smith Publishing. It's a collection of comedic essays and Southernisms that has been endorsed by Dolly Parton as fun, informative, and oh so Southern. Julia's new book is Embrace Your Southern Sugar, and she is currently writing on the new Netflix comedy, Country Comfort. She is joining us. She is 3 hours behind us in Los Angeles, California. She is kind enough to join us tonight. Julia, thank you so much. I will turn it over to you.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Wiley. As y'all know, Wiley is very talented, and I'm a fan of his. So it is a pure joy to work with him today on this, and I thank SEBA for having me as well. Yeah, let's talk about my book. I am originally from Gaffney, South Carolina, born and raised. I don't know if y'all know where that area is, but it's in the upstate of South Carolina, sort of right smack dab in between Greenville, South Carolina, and Charlotte, North Carolina on I-85. So you've probably heard of the Big Peach, the Big Peachoid. You can see behind me, I have a small little replica of that. But that's sort of what Gaffney's famous for, is that peach water tower. But I was born and raised there, graduated from the University of South Carolina. Then I moved to New York City. I was a musical theater performer on Broadway for many years, and moved to California because I fell in love, and love makes you do crazy things. Why else was a good Southern girl moved to Los Angeles? That's a very bizarre decision. But I fell in love, and my husband is a television producer. So we came out here, and I began working in film and TV as an actor, and really finally had time to pursue my love of writing And I first started as a screenwriter. Actually, my first stab at writing was screenwriting, and I've had a lot of stuff in development. I've not had anything made yet, which except the new show I'm on, which I'll tell you about later. But some of those scripts, everything I was writing was always Southern. So some of those scripts were, optioned by studios, but maybe not produced. And I kept getting this feedback that, they wanted to ultimately make things. The marketing department was nervous that if they didn't make things that had a global appeal, that they wouldn't do well, that the studios were very nervous to actually produce these sort of Southern centric films, which of course irked me. So I decided to just kind of do my own thing. It's tough as a writer. It's like interesting if you write books, because you write your book, you get your book published, and then people read it or they don't. When you're a screenwriter, you write scripts, and then it's totally up to whoever makes those, whether or not anybody ever sees your writing, sees your work. So I was getting a little bit frustrated with scripts not getting made. So I decided just to start a YouTube channel. There was this new thing called YouTube, and I made a video called Stuff Southern Women Say. And I gathered some of my best friends who are all Southern belles and all actresses, and we went viral. And it's really just a hobby, the YouTube channel, because we all have our own careers. But I basically, from the popularity of the YouTube channel, got approached by Gibb Smith Publishing, and they asked me if I'd be interested in writing a book. And I had never written in that format before, so I was a little intimidated at first. So my first book I wrote was called Talk Southern to Me. And much like my latest book, which we're here to discuss today, it's a very similar format. Talk Southern to Me, is a collection of comedic essays and a collection of Southernisms. And it's a lot of fun. And people seem to really love it. We cover all kinds of, major subjects that Southerners are sort of known for: our charm and our sense of style, and how we parent, and, all those sorts of things. How, I do a whole thing on Southern slang in that book. And I guess, folks must have liked it, because Gibb Smith asked me if I'd do another one. So this book, Embrace Your Southern Sugar, is really designed as a sequel to Talk Southern to Me. You don't necessarily excuse me, I can't talk, y'all. You don't necessarily need to read Talk Southern to Me in order to read Embrace Your Southern Sugar, but it's fun. They're fun to sort of, they're designed to be given as a gift set, which is cute for the holiday season. And I was real picky about making sure that it was a cute little size, little gifty size that could tuck in your pocketbook if you wanted to take it to the beach, or take it to the pool, or take it to the hair salon. Of course, Lord, it's hard to get to the hair salon these days, isn't it? But, something you could just take with you. And this book has, lots of, again, subjects I didn't sort of cover in the first book. So I do a chapter about your health. Southerners are about our health, and how we can't stop talking about our ailments, and talk a little bit about, some Southern remedies. I do one about how Southerners come and go into the world. So I do a chapter on, how long it takes us to say hello to each other, and how long it takes us to say bye. I always laugh and say that a Southerner, you can paint an entire house in the time it takes a Southerner to get out the door and say bye. I do a chapter on food, of course, Southern food, and I do some give y'all some of my family's favorite Southern recipes. Of course, every Southerner has their perfect way of doing things, but this is the way my family does it, and I talk about that. I do a chapter on being country. I'm real proud of being country. I was raised in the country by country folks, and I think really that chapter sort of encapsulates the whole spirit of the book. I would say that chapter is my favorite chapter, because really the spirit of Embrace Your Southern Sugar is just about that. The title says it precisely, is embrace your Southern. If you were born and raised in the South, you need to recognize that as a gift, because it makes you incredibly unique. You've been raised with a certain set of values and a certain sort of system for doing things that the rest of the world doesn't quite do it like us. And I am a firm believer, having lived a huge portion of my life in New York and now a big portion of my life in Los Angeles, that you can take the girl out of the South, but you cannot take the South out of the girl. And even though people have tried to mold me and sort of take the Southern out of my mouth, especially in my acting career, I have stayed true to my voice because, I'm real proud of the dirt from which I was raised and the people that raised me. I think it defined me. And I think that being raised Southern and having those sort of the values and the system for life that we're raised with as Southerners is something that's really useful to you in the real world. Just being nice can go a long way in life. Saying hey to people, remembering people's birthdays, writing thank you notes, all that kind of stuff. And so that's really what the book is. It's a celebration of being Southern, and I try to share a lot of personal stories. I'd say that Talk Southern to me, my first book, it's more of a sort of it's a good guide. It's like a good general guide to the South. For those of you that don't sort of those people that don't understand the South, it's really explains it well. And for those of us who were born and raised in the South, it gives us a chance to really laugh at ourselves as I point out a lot of our funny, eccentric traits. And then with this book, instead of it being more of a general thing, I really, I sort of cut a vein and told a little bit more personal stories. Hopefully my family, well, they're still talking to me. I'm not sure they've all read the book yet, but hopefully they're not too mad at me for sharing too much about my crazy family's life. But, I think we all sort of share those stories of being raised in the South and how it's sort of shaped our souls and shaped who we are and shapes the way we move through the world. And I hope that when people read the book, that it sort of elicits, memories of your own family, your own funny Southerners in your life that have raised you and been influential on you. And yeah, I was really fortunate also to get some great endorsements on this book from people from Southerners that I truly admire, like Dolly Parton, of course, Queen of the South, and Andy McDowell, who is, of course, a very talented actress and from my hometown of Gaffney, South Carolina. So it was really sweet to have her endorsement. One of my favorite Southern writers, Celia Rivenbark, has endorsed this book. And if you've not checked out her books, I hope you will. I'm a big fan. And then, of course, another one of my favorite actresses who is a new friend, Delta Burke. Good old Suzanne Sugarbaker. You can't go wrong if Suzanne Sugarbaker thinks she looks funny. That was pretty flattering to me that she got on board to endorse it. And since that time, we've become friendly, and I've really enjoyed getting to know her and her husband, Gerald McCready, who's also super talented and also was kind enough to endorse the book. So I hope y'all enjoy it. And I'm going to I feel like I've been talking forever. I have no idea. So I'm just going to let Wiley come back.
No, that was great. I'm happy to sit and listen to that all night. And it's so funny you mentioned the Sugarbakers. I was actually thinking about her a couple of days ago and thinking, God, I bet she is such a fun person to hang out with.
She is.
Yeah.
She really is. I met her randomly at a Super Bowl party. Oh, and speaking of, I didn't even mention that when I was talking about the book, but another chapter I have in this new book is a chapter on football. And so there's an obsession with football. So, I'm a big football fan. I went to University of South Carolina. University of South Carolina is not the best team, but we're loyal fans.
Yeah.
We don't win every game, but we never lost a party.
Right, yeah. My wife went to law school at South Carolina, and when she was choosing law schools, she said, I just want to go to a law school that has a big football team. I don't care if they're good or not. So South Carolina was perfect.
That's perfect.
Because the parties were just enormous.
Big party, big stadium, big tailgating. Sometimes we win.
And if they lose, nobody sets cars on fire.
Whatever, exactly. We're like, whatever. It's all about socializing there.
Sure.
All about socializing with each other. But but yeah, the football. Wait, what were we talking about? You asked me about
Delta Burke.
originally. Delta Burke. Thank you. I was like, wait, how'd that come about? I met her at a Super Bowl party, and yeah, I walked in the party. A friend of mine, Stephanie Michelle, who is a former Miss Georgia, of course, and she's an actress. She lives out here in Los Angeles, and she actually did a video with me on my Southern Women channel, the YouTube channel. She is in an episode of Mama Made Me Do It, which is an interview series I do where Southern folks tell me funny stories about things their Southern mama made them do. So she and I became friendly through that interview process, and she invited me to her Super Bowl party. So I went thinking, it's just Super Bowl party, whatever, And I walked in the door, and Delta Burke was there, and I looked to my husband, and I was like, oh my Lord, oh my Lord, oh my Lord, Delta Burke's here. Oh my God. I have to go to the bathroom and put on lipstick. I didn't have on any lipstick. I was like, I cannot meet Delta Burke without lipstick. And I ran to the bathroom and I put on lipstick and came back out. And I was like, okay. Then I like moved myself around to the party, like, casually. So I didn't look like a stalker until I was kind of close to her, and just sort of in eye shot. And all of a sudden she looks over and she goes, hey, are you that girl that makes those videos about stuff Southern women say? I was like, that's me.
Awesome.
And so she was like, I love your videos. And of course, I went and sat down and started talking to her and did not see 1 second of the Super Bowl party. I mean, of the actual game, because I spent the whole party talking to Delta.
Was she glamorous? What was she like in person?
Well, to me, Delta Burke will always be glamorous because she's Susan Sugarbaker, and that she's royalty as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
She's super friendly, very warm, and really in love. She and her husband, Gerald McCready, have been together forever. They met on Designing Women, and she told me about that. How they met. And they're just cute as they can be, just all in love and cute. And she's great. She's here in Los Angeles, and she's become a friend, and I feel I'm super blessed for that.
That's really cool. So I want to ask you, and I want to tell folks, if you have questions, make sure you go to the Q&A at the bottom of your screen and type your question in for Julia, and I'll make sure you get it. We've already had a shout out from Blythe from Sparkle City down in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Sparkle City.
Representing your home, representing your roots. So I want to ask, to start us out here, what kind of, maybe not pressure, but what is the mantle like to represent the South? Because I feel that way, when I go out with a new book or I'm doing a Q&A with whatever the media is, there's always, you're not just a writer, you're a Southern writer, and you're not just an actor, you're a Southern actor. You're not just writing these books, you're writing Southern books. What does that mean to you when somebody positions you in that way? What kind of responsibility do you feel like you take on, or do you kind of push back a little bit and say, no, I am a writer who happens to write about the South? Or how do you navigate those labels?
That's a really interesting question, Wiley. And nobody's ever asked me that. And so what comes to mind first for me is a huge amount of responsibility. I think when I first started writing, the first script I ever wrote, I was just like, I'm going to write a movie. And my husband, who is a very experienced producer, was like, good for you, honey. Good. You work on that, And I really didn't know what I was doing. I bought Final Draft software and I taught myself to use it. And I started writing. I had been on Broadway doing 8 shows a week for 10 years, doing tours. And so whoever had time to write anything, you don't, because you spend all your time doing dance class and vocal lessons and everything just to stay in athletic shape to do that. So I kind of always wanted to write, but I never did. And when I started writing, what poured out of me was the Southern voice. And it wasn't really a decision. It was just more stream of consciousness, I think. It's just sort of what came out. And so that first script, once I finally figured out what I was doing, was so well received in the industry here in Hollywood and opened up so many doors for me, even though it didn't get made. It really encouraged me to stay in that lane, because I realized not a lot of people in Hollywood are born and raised in the South and are TV or film writers. There are lots, but not as many, as there are non-Southern writers.
Mhm.
So I felt like that was a lane that I could serve the South best in here. My goal was to always either create a movie or create a TV show, or to, something that would reflect upon Southerners in a very positive way. I think a lot of times, we get a bad reputation. Southerners do, and some of it we earn, but some of it is completely unearned, and I feel like it's a chance for me to bring authenticity to the South. And especially on the show I'm on now, where I'm on a writing staff, which is a little bit different. I'm on a show now called Country Comfort from Netflix. It's a new comedy. It comes out, you'll see it'll come out next year. But even on that show, I'm the only Southern writer in the room on a Southern show. So my voice is really important. And a lot of times I have to fight. Like, I have to really fight to convince them. I'll say like, oh, she wouldn't say that. She'd say this. And they're like, nobody talks like that. I'm like, yeah, they do. It sounds funny to you, but a Southerner would really turn the phrase that way.
Yeah.
And it's just, it sounds weird to other people's ears, but it sounds so homespun to us.
Yeah.
To people from the South. So I do feel that pressure. And as far as writing books go, and even my YouTube channel go, I also feel pressure there, because I never, ever want people to think that anything I do is making fun of the South. I'm laughing with the South. We are ridiculous. And, we have to be able to laugh at ourselves. And so, it's always a little bit like you worry a little bit with tone, like, will my tone be misinterpreted?
Yeah.
But I've done my best to try to, to make sure that everything I work on, whether it's a book or a script or a video, everything is a love letter to the South.
Yeah. It's funny you say that about being in the writer's room, the only Southern writer in the writer's room. I imagine you do feel an incredible responsibility, as you said, to hear those turns of phrase. I remember when I was working on my first book, my wife would come across maybe a line of dialogue and she would say, this doesn't seem right. And I would say, read it out loud. And she would read it out loud and say, oh, that is right. When you hear things and you put it in somebody's mouth. So when you're looking at lines like that, are you imagining the actor saying them and how that's going to be like a 10-ear feeling if you hear it? And are you thinking about your friends back home and in the upstate saying like, how did you let that line get through?
Yeah, well, here's I feel a lot of pressure, and this is my first big job on a television show, so it was a big break for me to get this gig. And I really commend the show creator, a lady named Karen Lucas. Brilliant television writer. She really believed in me, and she really liked my crazy country's cornbread voice. She just liked it. Now, at the same time, she has made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes of television, over her career. So her word is the word. She's the boss. So, all you can do when you're in my position, because the other writers have a ton of television experience. So technically they're also producers on the show. There's a hierarchy. So all you can really do in my position is pitch with passion. And that's what I do. I pitch with passion. And then if, I get pushed back on some things, I'll put my sweet Southern smile on and wait my time. And when the timing's right, I'll come back around. Well, I've been thinking about that. And I really think that we should revisit this again, and I'll push again. And then, if the answer's still no, you have to take no gracefully, which is also part of being Southern, is, being able to work with a group of people and be polite, even though you disagree. And to respect them, even though you may disagree with their decision. So yeah, not everything's going to be perfect. Not everything's going to be, exactly the way maybe I would have done it if it was my own show, but it's not my show, so I am certainly making my best effort on a daily basis. I made sure that we got the best dialect coach that we could find to work with the actors, because we cast stars, and and a lot of times, maybe I wanted to cast a Southern person over this person, or this person over that person, but it's not my decision.
Sure.
So a lot of times we'll have Southern people as guest stars on the show. Sometimes not. We have a lot of children in our show, so we had to work with kids who had a lot of acting experience. And a lot of times you don't find those kids in the South. You got to find those kids in Hollywood sometimes, and then you got to train them. So I was a stickler about the dialect coach, and it was good for me in the first part of the production to be on set, because the actors could hear me, and actors would come up to me and say, "Could you just say this?" And what exactly does this mean? And I was there. It was a little bit more difficult when I was working remotely, but we had professionals there to work with them, and I think the spirit of the show is really authentically Southern, and a lot of country music. And I think it's going to be, I think Southerners are going to love it.
Can you tell us where it's set? I know you probably can't say a whole lot about it, but can you tell us about
Oh, yeah, I can tell you a little about it. I can give you the general stuff. It's the family sitcom that's set in Nashville, Tennessee. And it's basically, I call it the Southern sound of music. That's just sort of my take on it. Just to get you sort of put it in a nutshell. But it's about, it takes place on a horse farm in Tennessee, and it's a dad played by Eddie Cibrian, has 5 children who are all musically talented because their mother was musically talented. Their mother died, and so they've been through several nannies, and none of the nannies will stick around because the 9-year-old makes sure that they all get fired. So our pilot, you meet a young girl named Bailey, who is being played by Catherine McPhee, and she is an aspire. Excuse me.
I'm in.
Oh yeah, she's played by Catherine McPhee, and Catherine, her character Bailey Hart, she's an aspiring country singer in Nashville who still hadn't quite made it. So she ends up taking this job as a nanny, and it's really fun. It's a lot of fun. It's got a ton of heart. And I think that's what I'm most proud of about the show, is it's not just a silly sitcom. It is a funny show. It's a Southern show. It's a show you can watch with your whole family, and it really tugs at your heartstrings.
Mm-hmm. Do you find, and I feel like when people are really, and we have some questions to get to, so I want to make sure we get to those. But do you find, my wife's family, she was raised in North Carolina, but her grandparents are from Long Island. They're like Italian,
Long Island.
And so the stuff they say, like especially in anger, sounds kind of hilarious to me because of their accents. Uh-huh. And do you find writing with that Southern accent in mind and in voice that it's easier and almost more fun to hit those comedic notes, relying on those turns of phrase?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, for me, it's all about rhythm. Mm-hmm. And, there's something about the Southern accent that's melodic. There's a music to it. And depending on where you are in the South, that accent's slightly different. That melody's just ever so unique. Mm-hmm. And I can only honor the way I was born and raised. I have that sort of upstate Carolina, right at the base of the Appalachian Mountains, basically. Mm-hmm. So I've still got that kind of flat Appalachian kind of country nasally accent, but you can go down to Charleston, and it's a little bit more rounded. You get a little bit more low country, a little bit more upscale. You go in Tennessee, you're going to get a little bit more mountain, a little bit more nasal, so it just kind of depends on where you are, but I feel like whatever it is when I'm writing, it's about the rhythm. Mm-hmm. And if you're really writing in Southern phrases and a Southern accent, you can honor those rhythms to really create a joke.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. Well, I have a couple of questions, but I want to get to our audience's questions as well.
Okay, sure.
We have a question from Marcy. She is joining us all the way from Utah, where her bookstore is the King's English in Salt Lake City. I got to visit that bookstore several years ago on a layover. Marcy asks, what is your favorite recipe in the book, and will you be making pie for Thanksgiving this year?
Ah, Marcy. Well, I guess my favorite, it's hard to say now. I'm going to get in trouble with my family if I start picking favorites, but I'd probably say my favorite recipe in the book is my mama's mac and cheese because she's been making it forever and ever and ever. It's not the most complicated, fancy recipe for mac and cheese. Trust me, there'll be plenty of Southerners like, that's not the way you do it. You have to melt it like this. No, Mama does it easy. For working moms, she's always done it this way. She is the one that makes it for every holiday dinner. And I think it has a lot of sense memories for me, that mac and cheese. And then I talk about this in my book, but I have a gluten allergy. So I didn't discover that until about 6 years ago. And I had a lot of health problems, and they figured that out. So then I had to learn to make it with gluten-free pasta. So I think I also love it because I can't tell the difference. It tastes the same to me. So it's like, it's an easy Southern recipe to replicate gluten-free. So that's probably my favorite one. And
Okay.
will I be making pie? Yeah, I'm gonna make pecan pie. Although I think it's just gonna be me and my husband for Thanksgiving. We're gonna be pandemic fabulous, I guess, with our big pie and turkey all by ourselves.
and gluten-free mac and cheese, of course.
Yes.
And I want to get to another question, but I want to ask, now you live in LA. Your husband, where is he from originally?
My husband is from New York City. He is Yankee through and through, born and raised on 86th Street in Central Park West. We could not be more opposite. And I talk about him a lot in the book. Trust me, I throw him right under the bus and all his tacky Yankee ways. I have had to school that boy, but he's absolutely brilliant. And he's one of the funniest people in the world, which is, why I just love him so. And he really was just so fascinated by me when we first met. I met him young. I've been with him forever. I met him when I was in New York City on Broadway, and he's been with me forever. And, we've Southernized him a bit in the South now.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask,
get a Southern on.
When you first brought your husband home to the upstate, or when you bring friends from LA, or when you're on the road and you have a friend in your region, what is something you always want to show them, or an experience you always want them to have?
Oh, wow. What a great question, Wally. Well, it depends on where I am. I'd say a lot of times if people just come visit me in my hometown, in Gaffney, then, we got to go see the Big Peach, and then we spend a lot of time, if we're in my hometown, on my parents' back deck. We got one of those Southern back decks. We have a beautiful property with a man-made a man-made pond out in the country. So, we just sit on the back porch and fill up our little red cups and chew the fat and talk about everybody in town and, get caught up on everything. And, and then if they've never been to the South, then I'll start taking them around. You know what I mean? Like it might be that, I'll go and show them, like my favorite little restaurant here, or, the cute little boutique downtown, which is Hartzogs, that's sort of always been there, where I went to school, my little elementary school, all the 50,000 houses I lived in growing up, because we moved a lot, stuff like that. But then of course I'm going to take people to Charleston. If you've never been to Nashville, I'm a real fun person to take you to Nashville for the first time, because I love country music and I'm an excellent clog dancer. So I'm fun to have around when they play Devil Went Down to Georgia or something like that in Tootsie's. I'm a fun sidekick. And I love Asheville. I love Asheville, North Carolina. I just think it's beautiful. There's just so many great places in the South. And then there's all the wonderful coastal cities. I've got so many memories in Myrtle Beach and up and down the Florida coast. And, I love Atlanta. If you want to go shopping, let's go to Atlanta. There's a lot to do in the South.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have another less of a question and more of a comment from a fiction writer named Barbara Claypole White. Her home bookstore is page 158, and she says that she is a huge fan of yours, from the videos to your books. She's a fantastic novelist as well, so she wants to give a shout out and say how much she enjoys your work and
Thank
supports the
you.
bookstore.
Thank you.
I have one more question before we're almost out of time here, but I wanted to ask you. So you have done so many things. You've been on Broadway. You have, like, literally, you've written books. You've written these skits with the Southern Women Channel. Now you're working on a sitcom. How do you move between all these creative spaces as a writer and as a creative?
Honey, it is maddening.
Yeah.
It is maddening. I won't lie, Wiley. It's hard. People, like, for example, I've been getting a lot of texts and, chats and messages and stuff lately. When y'all gonna make more videos? When y'all gonna make more videos? And what people don't understand is I have been working full time on a television show. So there is no spare time. I barely had time to take a shower and brush my teeth. That's the truth. That's how crazy television is. So it becomes, sometimes I feel like I wake up and, like, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm a list maker. So I make lists, but I'm often so overwhelmed. I don't know where to start first. And then I have to get in each mode. Like, okay, today I'm working on YouTube. So I have to get in YouTube mode, social media mode, small bite mode, writing like this, writing for these particular actors, thinking now, like, what can I write that I can film in this situation, in the situation that the world's in? That's my current challenge, right? Because I want to make new content, but how can I film it? How can I write to the technology that I have available to me right now? So there's that. I just had to do a polish on a screenplay last week. I adapted a novel called Whistling Past the Graveyard by a writer named Susan Crandall. And it is a beautiful Southern novel if you've never read it. But I was hired to write that. And I had to do a polish on that this week because there's somebody interested. So I had to dive into a film feature script, which is totally different. You're in a different format, act structure's different, and I'm alone. So I had just been working for weeks and weeks and weeks on a TV show, and you have the luxury of saying to a fellow writer, "Is that funny? Is that good enough? Do you like that?" You get that immediate feedback. And that's a structure. Multicam sitcom writing is a very different structure than a single camera sitcom. And what I mean by that is something that looks like a multicam is like The Conners, okay? That's a multicam sitcom, or The Cosby Show, or Designing Women. That's a multicam. So it's a certain structure that has to happen in a certain amount of pages. That's different than a single camera show, which would be, let's name one, like Sex and the City. Okay, that's a single camera comedy, right? So then that's a different structure and layout, different 3-act structure, and different page count. So you have to kind of learn. And then books, I mean, come on, that's totally different. Yeah. And this book happened to be a book of essays, which is completely different than writing a novel like you, which I haven't even attempted. So I have nothing but respect for novelists because, that's a format that I haven't even been brave enough to tackle yet. It's, you learn as you go, and you get better, but it really is challenging. I won't lie.
Yeah. It's, I heard somebody say, I can't remember who it was. It was the podcast that Jason Bateman and Sean Hayes and Will Arnett have.
Yes.
And they were interviewing Melissa McCarthy, who I think is a genius.
Genius.
She said, you do even, and you were talking earlier about all the projects you'd worked on that were successful, but that doesn't mean they get made.
Yeah.
It means somebody's interested in them, somebody purchases them, that you do the work so that one day you can do the work.
She's so right. Because I always say, I guess, and I don't know if my mama told me this, probably so, because you know how these things sit in your ear, but it's always about you planting seeds. And Mama's a gardener, and she's a real good gardener. And so that's why I think I probably heard it from her, but you never know when you're going to reap the rewards from the seeds you're planting. So, you just keep doing it. And every failure that I think that I first perceived as a failure in Hollywood or whatever, it really was about relationship building, me learning, me going in and pitching to networks, or maybe they didn't buy it, but now that door is open for me next time, and you just have to sort of have that spirit of perseverance, in certainly as a writer and certainly as a Hollywood writer,
Sure.
because there's so much rejection. But I do this because I love it. I mean, you don't choose to be an artist because it's an easy living. You choose to be an artist because you have no other choice.
Yeah. Well, that's great advice from your mom as we get out the door here. The only piece of advice my mom ever gave me was, Wiley, the devil works on families. So I like your mom's advice better. My mom was like, look at Jim and Tammy Faye, honey. The devil works on families. I'm like,
devil works on family. I love it. My mama was always like, idle minds are the devil's playground.
Yeah.
Always.
Oh, yeah.
She was like,
Oh,
do
yeah.
something active. Don't just sit around.
Well, Julie, this was a real pleasure. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. And best of luck with the book and with the show. I'm excited to see it when it comes out. It sounds absolutely like exactly what we need right now, to be honest.
I hope so. Yeah, it's good family fun. And I so appreciate Seba having me today. And thank y'all for showing up.
Of course, yeah. And I want to remind everybody to come back and join us on January 14th when we are with David Zucchino. He is the Pulitzer Prize winning author of Wilmington's Lie. It is about the only coup d'etat in American history. It happened right here where I am in Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898. It is a great uncovered, undiscovered story, and David Zucchino's book is fantastic and interesting and timely. So please join us then. Julia, again, thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Wally. I loved meeting you, darling.
Yeah, likewise. Happy birthday and happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving, all that.
Thank you so much. You too.
Good night.
Bye-bye.